Well, there's a strong Chennai connection to the last Sky Cricket podcast of 2024. It involves two gentlemen who were born and grew up in that great city, one of whom became a very great cricketer. The other one is the co-host
It's Ravi Ashwin.
this podcast. Ravi Chandran Ashwin, welcome to the Sky Cricket podcast. Great to have you on. Thanks for joining us. Just a few days after you announced your international retirement, and the numbers are quite staggering. You lead the stage with 765 international wickets, not to forget 6 Test hundreds, of course, and the 7th highest wicket taker of all time in Test cricket. In my experience, athletes are not the satisfied type. It's always the next game that counts and the next innings or the next bowling performance. It's very rare that top-class athletes kind of sit back and kind of reflect in a satisfied way about what they've done. But that can come at the end. And since you've retired now from international cricket and you can look back a little bit, are you satisfied? I mean, 765 wickets and the 7th highest wicket taker of all time in Tests. Are you satisfied as you sit here now?
I won't be 7th on the list for a long time, Athers. Nathan Lyon's breathing down my neck. Yes. I'm glad to be number 8. I'm glad to be whatever number I happen to become eventually. Look, I think one tag that's always come behind me as I played this game is that people have tended to say that I've been a numbers man. I do know my numbers. I probably giving you the impression that I went after numbers. In all honesty, that was never the case. It was all about me getting excited to be something else than very next day that I played the game. The game gave me so much to a point where it allowed me to explore the creative best inside me. And I'm forever in debt and so grateful for the game to have given me so many avenues to explore myself. And I don't know what you would like to label that, what people might want to read in between those lines, but I don't think the cricketer in me is yet done. I do visualize myself doing a lot more in the next few years, because that tag of being an Indian cricketer can be overwhelming. And now that it's off my back, I do have an avenue to explore much more for the next few years, as long as my body is allowing me to do so. But thank you so much. That's a rich amount of compliment to have been received on this show for. I watched a lot of your podcasts, and I must say I'm totally grateful to be here joining both of you. You both are like the beacons of cricket commentary at this point of time. I enjoy hearing both of you talk.
That's kind. Thank you. I know you don't want to go into the specific reasons about retirement, but just a couple of questions around retirement more generally, because again, in my experience, athletes come to it in different ways. Some, the decision weighs on them and they ponder it for a long time. And others suddenly wake up one day and think, I'm done. That's it. And I just wondered where on that spectrum you sat.
Yeah, I think there's always that question that lies inside you, right? Like you keep asking yourself, am I really making this decision the right way? I mean, in my case, it was slightly different. I do not know how exactly to position this, but I've never been one of those kinds to hold on to things. Never felt insecure in life, because I don't believe what I have today is probably going to be mine tomorrow. So that's probably been one of my elevating factors all these years. And I just always did want to just leave things behind as nonchalantly as I can, because I do not believe in people celebrating me. I do not believe in the kind of attention we get sometimes in India. It is the game that's always stood ahead of me all the time. Because if you watch me, talk about the game or, dissect it, it's all about how much I love the game. It's not so much what comes with it. I'm sure I'm not judging people who enjoy what comes with it. But this is my journey. And I did contemplate quite a few times. But like one line that I've always said and mentioned on interviews or to people who said, what is next? Which is, for me, the day I wake up and feel that creative side doesn't have a future or a direction is when I'd probably give it up. I certainly think that creative side didn't have a lot of upside. to explore. And I think that was probably nerdling me a little bit. And because I mean, today I do something creatively. I'm starting to think, where do I actually open the laboratory and experiment for this? Okay, maybe that window is not there. So it's totally a battle inside me for thinking about how I'm going to, sort of experience or explore these options. And I do think there are laboratories available in world cricket today. So I thought, okay, maybe this is not the lab. I can find another one.
I know you didn't want to be celebrated, but you have been celebrated since you announced your retirement. You must be pretty humbled by the reaction you've got from fans around the world, cricketers, ex-cricketers. I know you tweeted out a picture of your phone with the great Kapil Dev and the great Sachin Tendulkar FaceTiming you. It has been an overwhelming reaction of love for you as an Indian cricketer.
I actually went to bed one night thinking, what the hell have I done, actually? Because the people like Kapil Dev and Sachin Tendulkar are people who I watched at the Chepauk Nas. I mean, Athos, when he started the show, he mentioned that we both are from the same city. I still remember that story when my grandfather first took me to the Chepauk. As I'm talking to you, Chepauk is right in front of me here. So he took me and he said, "Do you know Nasir Hussain was born? He was born in this hospital here." And I'm like, "Really?" Because it didn't really, it didn't look great. And I'm like, "Okay, Nasir Hussain, Nasir Hussain, the captain of the England cricket team." And he said, "Yes." And that was my first memory going through the lanes of Walaja Road into the Chepauk Cricket Stadium. Coming back to what you'd actually asked me, I watched Sachin Tendulkar and Kapil Dev play a Duleep Trophy game there, and for me, Sachin Tendulkar was everything. Everything in the sense that when he batted or when he was on the cricket field, my stomach used to churn. I didn't want him to get out. I wanted success for him so much that I used to emulate him, shadow batting in my house or in the localities or while playing gully cricket. To get a call from him, he spoke to me at depth about how he felt when he had hung up his boots. And then Kapil Dev calling me and, speaking about what he felt and what he thought of me was everything centering around to the same point where it had begun. It was kind of, like you said, it was overwhelming. At the same time, it keeps reminding me that we are living on a time loop on this planet, and what goes around does actually come back to you. So felt overwhelmed, at the same time a massive amount of gratitude, which is what centers me all the time. And I'm totally happy for how people have received this. In fact, I went back home and I saw so many people standing in front of my house, and I'm like, okay, I don't know how to react to this. But all in all, these are the people that have showered love on me over all these years, and I'm so happy that they've received me well. And honestly, I think cricket is going to be in my blood, and I don't see myself separating myself from the game itself.
Can we go back to the start then at Chennai? I mean, you've kind of taken it there, and that's a good point to begin, really, obviously, because of the connection that Nas has with you as well. But first question from me is that the first part of your autobiography, which is I Have the Streets, I think it's called, finishes just before your Test match debut, which is very unusual. So it shows what that kind of upbringing has meant to you, that you're dedicating a whole kind of part one of one assumes there's a second part coming, but the whole part one of that book to your upbringing. This is a very broad question, but we're all products of our environment. But how has that city shaped you as a person and more importantly, as a cricketer?
Look, there are two parts to the answer that I want to give to you, Athos. The first part is, what does the city bring and who am I? Like several times, not several times, 99.9% out of 100 times, a bowler's life isn't very fascinating. It's not as colorful, it's not as sizzling as some of the other aspects of cricket is and continues to be. So for me, I wanted people to know me for who I am, because a lot of times Ashwin's picking up a wicket and Virat Kohli is all over the place. He's just jumping about, and people very often tend to believe that Ashwin's the one that's absolutely serious and Virat's the one that's having all the fun. Which is why somebody asked me the question is, why are you serious all the time? My answer to that in the first place is, I'm never a serious person. But when somebody is clobbering me and I have the ball in my hand to win a test match for my country, my mind is ticking because I'm in the process. So very often, you don't see me picking up a 5-wicket haul and pushing across the kitch through the blade of my bat to my better half sitting in the dressing room or sitting in the hospitality box. So I felt like a lot of who I am got diluted in the fact of what I've become. So I wanted to bring that out in the book because I feel I'm a huge like just like Nas sitting in the backdrop of so many of his collection of books. I'm sure he's read each one of them. I love reading books, not self-help books, but I love reading novels. And I got attracted to so many of those sequels of novels. So I thought, just because I speak a lot from my heart, I think deeply, but I am also very in tune to saying I'm not here to hurt anyone, but I want to speak my mind. I thought it is very important to establish the fact as to who I am to a reader, not because of me being Ravichandran Ashwin. It's because I just wanted to establish myself as an author or a writer or a protagonist in the first half of what I wanted to write, just to set up, if I can write a series of books which eventually become a novel and not about myself or an autobiography. Yeah.
Nas, you were saying you hadn't realized that you grew up very close to where Ash lives now.
Yeah, I was at my mum's yesterday. I said, I'm interviewing Ravi Ashwin tomorrow, and she was like, "Yeah, St. Bede's School. You were brought up Foreshore Estate, just down the road." I mean, I was only 6 or 7 when I left Chennai or Madras at that time, so I didn't realize how close I was to you. Obviously, a few years apart as well. Can you believe now? I mean, you used to bowl those drifting, outswinging off spinners using the sea breeze and not spinning a single delivery. 537 Test wickets. Is it right? You started as a batter, and the off spin just progressed from there. Tell us those early days. What were you as a cricketer?
Just to establish that I have a house in Foreshore Estate now, and that's where I'm doing this interview from. Yeah.
Okay. Even closer link.
So I am on that 4 by lanes here, and I really enjoy it. Like I said, the Chepauk Stadium is right in front of me here. So coming back to what you asked for, Nas, St. Bede's is where I did my high school. A very, very important turning point of my life because I had a serious hip injury when I was 14. And I hadn't played cricket for a couple of years. And everybody in the know-how of the cricketing circles had forgotten who I was because I was a prolific batter, batting at the top of the order. And I did make a lot of waves through the cricketing circle here. School cricket was massive. And then I was, by the time I finished my 10th standard, which is a very important landmark from where I come from, I was moving into high school. And I really did want to explore being a cricketer. I come from a very normal, you know what it is in Chennai or in India. It's very easy to have a rags to riches story. People speak about people who come from, there are a lot of stories which are very inspiring, especially of late. Cricketers who come from very tough backgrounds and then make it right all the way to the top. And then there are people, of course, who are, coming through the structure, who do have a little bit of privilege and they do come through. Most often than not, the forgotten people are the middle class of this country. And I come from one of those really low middle class families. And we are, in a way, the forgotten tribe. So for me, it was an important choice to make for my household, whether I had to go the educational route. I was the only kid in the house. Or try and explore a dream, a boy next door. I mean, if you can rank people of the same age group or the same locality that I came from, about 1 million of them, or maybe a couple of million, or maybe 10 million of them, there's only one that's made through the cut, and that's me, because most of them are either engineers, doctors, scientists, or bank managers. They take that route. And for being the only son of that middle class family, my dad had very lofty ambitions. He said, my son must give it all, because my father didn't have the money to get me a cricket bat. But now I can afford a cricket bat. Let me see if my son can make it through. And he said, no, we're going to try this once more because your hip injury cannot be a deterrent. Let's see how far you can go. And he went and spoke and got admission in St. Bede's, the top cricketing school in the city at that point of time. I went in, I had to establish myself as a batter again, started making a few runs. Which is when my mum, after all those years, she used to work at a company called Hindustan Lever, which is quite an MNC now. And she was the economic founding for us. I mean, she was the base. Because if my father had to drive me to the ground, she had to go to office. So she decided to make it to one of my cricketing games. It was a 50-over game. Unfortunately, I got out in the second over or third over, being the opening batter. She sat. She saw that she thought I'm going to bat again, which wasn't the case. And then eventually, at the end of the game, she came to me and said, I'm very disappointed. I said, yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't make runs today, just the way it is. She said, no, I was standing there thinking you will do something. You didn't take a catch. You didn't bowl a ball. Why don't you bowl? And I said, no, I do bowl a bit of off spin. I can't bowl seam up anymore. And then she suggested, Shane Warne is a leg spin bowler. It's very fascinating. Why don't you become a leg spinner? So the next day I went and tried leg spin in the nets. Not quite the same. Tried off spin again, started bowling. And the moment I started bowling, the coaches identified that I had something. They started using me with the new ball as a starter because there was a sea breeze. I'm sure you heard Dinesh Karthik speak about that. Massive sea breeze blowing across from right to left. And the fast bowlers never used to be able to control the swing. So I used to bowl quickish off breaks, getting them through to the 20th over. And that's how my career started.
I suspect that's another link that you and Nas have, that your parents seem quite, I don't know how to put this, obsessive or, quite driven to try and help you along the way. I wondered whether that you'll be the same kind of parent to your children. Will that affect how you are as a parent?
Not a chance, Athos. I think gone are those generation of parents. I must say, you need a deep sense of sacrificial nature to be able to think like the way they did, and their sense of sincerity and the kind of sacrifices that they made. I live with my dad and mom now, and we have a lot of we have a lot of arguments, and I argue with them, I fight with them, but at the end of it all, I have only one line to tell them. I just cannot be the parents that you were, because I just don't understand how you can park your selfish intent for such a long period of time just because your son wanted to do something in life. And it was a very emotional moment for me when I had that hip injury at 13. I was just lying down. I went back home. I got left out of the state team on that very evening. Quite the insensitive people. I made a pair in that game, and they gave me a letter saying you don't have to come for the next game because you dropped. So as a 13-year-old, I didn't know how to take it. I went back home. I was limping, and I was lying down in my mom's lap, and I said, you know what? I'm not a great student. You get called into school for me flunking a few subjects, and then I don't play cricket as well. I've spent a good whole lot of 5-6 years playing the game. I don't know where I'm headed with this. And she said, whatever happens, yes, we are not the most privileged, but I'll make sure that I slog my ass off and make sure that you have some money to live with, even if you think you're a failure in life. I didn't get the opportunity to live the way I wanted, but I want you to at least tomorrow tell your children that your parents supported you in the dream that you had. Very deep, very comforting for a child at that point of time. But I think back and I said, if I am a parent, would I have said that to my children? And the answer was, I don't know. If I had to be honest, the answer is no. But I mean, that's some other level of being a sacrificial, having that sacrificial nature towards what your son wanted to accomplish. I have deepest of gratitudes towards my parents, and in a way, whatever they do, whatever they say, I think that love for them comes from that point of time. I've seen what they've gone through to make me who I am today, and very, very humbled. Yes.
I read an article the other day, and it described you as the accidental hero, and it was like a very complimentary article, as in you weren't born and at a young age full of talent, and hence you've had to work at everything you've done, and you've had to problem solve, and you've had to think through every solution. You've had to start as a batter and then work on your off spin. Does that fill you with pride that everything you've got in cricket you've had to seriously work for?
I just gave it all, Nas. I just gave it all, despite knowing it's not the popular method, despite knowing that's not going to be the accepted method, because my journey is just completely mine. And I've seen a lot of cricketers over the years with exceptional skill and talent. But the ability to be able to articulate that or to be able to teach another person about it is something that's very unique. And that comes across to people only if they've explored it themselves. And for me, for the kind of love that I have for this game, the amount of exploration I have had to do for being very successful has left me today with the knowledge, the wide variety of knowledge, to be able to say with confidence that this is a game I loved, this is a game I explored, and this is a game I can absolutely talk about for the rest of my life. And it's, in a way, like I said, I've got no regrets for it because I've had to do it the hard way. But it's left me with the whole idea of telling me that this is the game and that's been my calling. Several people find their calling at different stages of their life. But I'm so glad that this game found me and it's given me the meaning to life. And I've learned every single day on, in a way, if I played Test cricket for so long, it's even taught me how to, construct my life, how to live my life. And it's the most beautiful thing that's happened for me. And I'm so, like I said, I think the game found me and gave me the calling that I deserved.
Where does that inquisitive side come from? And also, if you could answer me, the balance between constantly trying to tinker with your off spin. I mean, you are a genius with that seam position. You did a masterclass with Ian Ward a few years ago, and I was glued to it, at the art of off spin. But how do you balance between constantly tinkering and trying to improve and actually just having that stock delivery and living with what you've got, if you know what I mean?
I got a real pasting from Ravi Shastri for doing that masterclass. I'm sure you heard about that from him. I think he had his
Giving away all your secrets.
Yeah, I think he had his point, but somehow inside me, I've never felt insecure about it. I think there's two things in the game, right? One is to be able to deliver what you have, and the other is to be able to respond to what you throw down the other end. And I always believed, and I had the courage to say, here's what I have to dish out. Let's see if you've got it in you to come at me. And very few times I've found that the batters have not had the courage to come at me for that. And I think it also plays a very deep mental game. Probably it's a battle I have in my own head. But all that aside, I've never been shy of sharing what I've got, because for me, every time I shared, I found a question inside me. So when I shared and I got a question, I had this unique capability to be able to take that question on board and find answers for it. So all this stems from a fact that I had to go a long way back in my life when I was about 14, 15. And I started bowling off spin. Again, going back to that reference that Dinesh Karthik had given. I used to have 3 people for the cut on the offside. Point, backward point, and short term. And I used to bowl outside off stump. I used to get the ball to swing. And one fine day, I think I was playing an under-19 game. I had just got 3 wickets and won the game for my state, Tamil Nadu. And the coach at the end of the game came to me and he said, you know what, you've not spun a ball. Do you think this is going to hold you in good stead for the rest of your life? Do you think you're an off spinner? I just think you're a batter who can bowl. So for the next 2 hours, I just kept grilling him for answers. I felt bad about this fact that he said I don't look like an off spinner. But most definitely and most importantly, I wanted to find out from him as to what a good off spinner looked like in his head. And I kept asking him questions again and again and again. At the end of the 2 hours, he said, you know what? I think you ask way too many questions. And these number of questions are like, it's challenging me. If you think you know better, I suggest you walk out of the room. And I was like, it hit me that I had challenged him. But inside my head, it was not the intention to challenge him. But I never shied away since NAS. I mean, because at the end of that conversation, I did not bowl with 3 points ever again. I knew what sort of fields I needed to keep. I needed to know what changes of pace meant. I understood what alignments were. I understood what straight lines are. Everything. I mean, how to hit a target, how to keep the stumps in play. I didn't know DRS was ever going to be a thing later on in life. But I understood what it meant to keep 3 stumps in play. And I'm forever grateful to that coach. He is, I mean, I haven't met him since, but I never shied away from challenging the several other coaches I've met on the way.
I mean, you came to off spin at quite an interesting time. If your international debut was around, 2011, we're still at the stage where the Dusra is a big thing for off spin. It was, 3 years after that Syed Ajmal then got banned and the kind of Doosra slipped from prominence almost. But at the point you're coming in, it was that I remember the conversations at that point. People are saying, well, if you don't have a Doosra, you can't be successful as an international off spinner. So I just wondered whether you could talk us through coming into off spin at that point. It's also just after the advent of the IPL, and in a way, T20 is starting to give a leg up to wrist spin above all. You know, the short form of the game is encouraging wrist spin. I suppose on the other side of the ledger is the one that you mentioned, DRS, which came in and was a big boon to the finger spinner in the end.
Yeah, look, I think for me, I want to really say one thing which I've always told any other spinner or a youngster or a bowler or anybody that I've met in my life over the last few years, is that off-spin bowling is one thing, but wicket taking is a completely different skill. I believe bowling the ball in a completely good side-on action, having a 45-degree arm path like how it's prescribed in the manual, is not necessarily what's going to get you the wickets. Anil Kumble had once mentioned that it's not the skill that gets you the wickets, it's the pressure that gets you the wickets. I have a twofold theory to that. Getting a wicket or picking a wicket is completely different. You don't get wickets. Wickets don't happen. You need to make them happen. And even in the shortest format of the game, I think we're still very archaic in the way that we see games. Yes, wicket taking is a very important skill, but it's almost got to a point right now in T20 where you need to be able to view it as a football game. You have a set of defenders and then you have a set of forwards and a midfielders. So it's got to a point, and for some strange reason, I have made mistakes of seeing where the game's gone. I don't deny that. But I also have this unique ability to be able to see where it's headed and be able to adapt and see the goalpost well or the finishing line well in advance. So for me, I felt analytical skills were very important. I knew I couldn't I wasn't as gifted as some of the other offies were with the natural action, with the natural drift. So I had to find ways and dig into tools to be able to find weaknesses in batters. The release shots, when did they play the release shot? What was their most often sought after dismissal? How did they react to a dismissal first time in the series? And how did they respond to that later on in the series? Because it's very important in a 3-test match or a 5-test match series to be able to mark your men early on in the series. And what are the answers they have once you've nailed them early on in the series? Supposing you don't get somebody out early on, how do you find answers? So for me, it's like Nas said early on, it's always been about problem solving, but it's always been very diligent and the ability to be able to pick and pounce on what the mental and physical or the technical weaknesses of batsmen have been.
Just throw it forward. You arrive in that Indian team, you get into the Indian dressing room, you're making your debut. At that stage, do you feel ready? Do you think, this is me, I'm ready for international cricket?
I did. I don't think I'd forgive myself if I said I wasn't ready for it. Yeah, but I think I was ready for it because I remember I had a lot of people, even though I had like 150, 140 wickets, first class cricket, I had picked up before I made my test debut. A lot of people started doubting whether I was an IPL product and if I was test ready. But the formative years for me as a club cricketer in Chennai gave me huge confidence. Because I know it's club cricket, it's chalk and cheese from test cricket. I learned that firsthand. But the ability to pick 5 wickets and, win matches for my club cannot be very different than what you want to do at international level. So the art of wicket taking was with me. How was probably that I learned as I went on that road. But one very significant advantage that I had was the ability to be able to dissect the game tactically as a bowler. And because batting came naturally to me, I understood batsmen and batting to a large degree. And field setting is something that as I've gone on playing this game of cricket, I've realized hardly any bowlers have a plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D on a particular day with respect to fields. It's like a game of chess. If you can park your men for the ball that you're going to deliver and take accountability for it, I think half the battle is won. And if you're prepared for the batter, I think the rest of the battle is also won. So I think the game is still stuck very technically, but there's so many more tactical elements that separates you from the rest of the crowd. So for me, like dissecting the game down tactically is the most important thing as far as I'm concerned.
Who played you well? Who played you best of all? And the reason I asked that, one of your early series, obviously you didn't lose many games at home, but one of your early series was against England, that 2000 and what was it, 12-13 series, I think, when Cook and Peterson in particular played very well. Was it a case there that you were just, on your journey, the start of your journey, and you're young and inexperienced, or were England at that point particularly good players of spin? I'm thinking Cook and Peterson in particular.
Look, I have one regret in life, and I know KP is a very proud man, and I've seen him speak a lot about how he took us down in Mumbai. Very early in my career, in the formative years, I'll talk about the technical side of what went wrong and how it put me on the path of excellence ever since. But that's one chance I've really missed. I wanted to take on KP every single time post that. Because KP is a wonderful batter. Not that I'm putting a disclaimer, but anybody that didn't have a sound defense was someone I really fancied. Because I'm very good at picking up players who step out. I'm very good at picking up players who sweep. I pick it up at the top of the mark, even before I come to the... that comes from the amount of footage in cricket I watch. With KP and that particular series with Cook, Alistair Cook, one of the finest batters I've bowled to. My alignments were so bad in that series. My left leg was going across so far out. Yeah, it was jumping out so far out that I wasn't able to get my length right at all. Once I finished the Ahmedabad test and we lost the test match in Mumbai, I kept going on a very vicious journey of trying to rectify what was going down the other end. What we forget as bowlers very often is if you control your 7 steps and the bowling crease, the rest of it is very incidental. So for the rest of my career, ever since 2012, it was all about finding different solutions. If I didn't get length on a particular day, if I felt like I was overpitching, or very, very few times I've underpitched. My issue as a tall bowler has been about pitching the ball a little bit fuller on occasions. I can safely say at least have 15 hacks about how I can get myself back on a particular day. Every single day something has worked, but the volume that I've repeated over the years and the craze I have for bowling and the plans that I have for a game, I go into the net with a purpose, has taught me so many things, and it's given me so many hacks to deal with. Personally, I'm very grateful for the series that went that way. Because if that hadn't happened, I might have not set myself on the path to excel as a bowler. Because to excel as a bowler, it's very internal rather than making it external.
And in Indian cricket, has a huge debt to pay to English cricket, doesn't it? Didn't you vow that would never happen again after 2012? It turned it all around for Indian cricket at home. It would never happen again, you said.
It's happened again, and it was a huge blow to me against the Kiwis. Look, I think there was a lot of trauma at the end of the series because we were losing some players. There was some transition. Mind you, I had batted really well in that series. I think I made close to about 400. I can't remember the exact number. Made a lot of runs. I came back home and, I was trying to sort out what was going wrong because Australia were touring us later probably a few months out from there. And I just watched so much footage on what went wrong. Why was Alistair Cook able to cut me so much? He cut me. Then people spoke about how he swept well. These are very relational deliveries, right? Like if you get cut, you're trying to compensate on the fuller side. And Cook was waiting to sweep me because he's bloody good at it. And as a batter, I could understand what was going on. But as a bowler, I was looking for solutions for it. And the first solution I discovered for that was, can I bring my stride back? I don't know if people can visualize this when I say this. I didn't want to make technical adjustments in terms of loading points, in terms of my wrist work, in terms of my hands. But I just wanted to make an understanding if I can pull my feet closer towards me. Just like a small hack for myself. Because if I brought my foot closer to myself, then I can get my body over my left leg. If I did that, then I would have more balance in the crease and more venom into the ball. I did that probably close to like 4 hours a day for the next 30 days. And by the end of it, I understood the game that way. I always feel it's about perception. The way you see a ball is not how I see it. Because Lakshman flick the same ball that Sachin covered drove. So we don't see it all the same way. So I understood it at that point of time to get a hack for that particular series. It went great. And later on, I realized that that wasn't working because it was in my head that I had to pull my leg and I wasn't transferring my weight. So I found something else. And my life as a bowler has constantly been this: to find something, revel on that, and when that doesn't work, try and find something else. Which is why I can understand why people don't get me. Very often, cricketers get into that zone of saying, you know what, I'm bowling very well, but I want to keep that to myself. I don't want to go forward because I might lose this. Just to give you an example, I always felt Adil Rashid was a fabulous bowler. But I just felt as a test bowler, he didn't really go on to do many things because he was just very happy and comfortable doing what he did. The ball used to just like make a noise. It used to just, that's the sound I used to get when I saw him bowl. But somewhere that insecurity really pulls us back from going on to achieving greater things.
Can I ask how things changed within the Indian team? You know, obviously, we're there for a long period of time, more than a decade. We're getting into the age of Kohli, who became captain. I was chatting to John Wright recently, who was India's coach before you got there, but you know he still scouts for Mumbai, and he said he felt very much that in the last few years, you know, the physicality of Indian cricket has changed. You know, much more emphasis on strength and fitness, and also the fast bowlers is the corollary of that. The influx of fast bowlers, which has been a relatively recent phenomenon as well. I mean, how have you viewed those changes, and would you agree that they're quite significant changes in the time that you've been within the Indian team?
So my first experience and my first mentor when I was playing club cricket told me that do not go to the gym. If you went to the gym, your shoulders will probably get a little tighter and your arm path would change and your bowling would suffer. That's my first experience or first piece of advice that I received from a senior. And as we are speaking, my first trainer was also a blessing for me. I had just got into the test team. I wasn't so much into strength training. I used to run a lot. I used to do a lot of cardio work. I wasn't naturally blessed, like you say, like you already mentioned. I discovered much later that I was lactose and gluten intolerant, which is why the kind of effort that I put off the field never showed on my body. And I used to have, like, because I'm a vegetarian, I didn't really consume a lot of meat. I never really started putting muscle because of that. And the first time I got introduced to a trainer was when he came home and said, I wanted to train you. I was like, it just took me by surprise. His name was Rajamani, and he used to work with RR. Now he's a freelancer. He's gone on to become a great trainer now. He came home and he said, I want to train you. Just try training with me. I put a 6-week block with him of strength training, and I went and played a New Zealand series in 2012, which is when I realized the difference because I was able to get off my back leg so high and come onto the front leg so quickly that my arm was going through much quicker than before. And when I realized it firsthand, I just couldn't leave it again because every time I didn't do a strength block, I felt like my arm speed was much slower. My takeoff leg wasn't doing enough work. My landing leg wasn't landing balanced enough for me to be able to get into the ideal position. And it put me on a different path, and it's changed quite a bit. Like, I probably think I don't know about what Nathan Lyon does. As a spinner, I probably think I lift the most. So I don't know about the others, but I lift a lot.
Whatever you did must have been working, because I don't think you missed a home test, did you? From debut to the last test against New Zealand. So the fitness, with all the skill and all the mental aptitude, the fitness has been there as well. I know Beefy Botham used to call you step and fetch it, but you still have to put in the hard yards off the field.
No, look, I think it's been a journey as well there, Nas. I learned quite a lot. There was a time when I went and referred books on strength and conditioning because very often we get given trainers, like even at the Indian cricket team, we had trainers given to us. The game is not evolved enough for you to be able to travel with a trainer and a physio. I set off on a path I became the Cricketer of the Year in 2016, 17, and then I got into a small problem. I had sports hernia hit me. I then had adductor strains in England in 2018. It was all one after the other. Then I had a patellar tendonitis. So everything was coming one after the other because I had embarked on a new journey to be able to increase my power. I had gone into Olympic lifting. I started cleaning and jerking 60, 70 kilos. I then went snatching about 60, 70 kilos. Those are like high level power exercises. And there was this instance in 2015 when MS Dhoni saw me lifting, right? He saw me snatching. He knew me right from a very young age, cleaning and stuff like that. And he then came to me and said, Ash, you know what? For whatever it is, I know how robust and how your body takes a lot of load. You've got different strengths. And this journey might be very tricky. Watch out for it. I don't know what he has in his tongue. In like 2 weeks, I injured myself first. But I went on that journey for the next couple of years. I don't think it's a bad journey to go through, but it's a very traumatic journey to go through because I didn't know how to balance between power, strength, and then cardio and running work. I couldn't balance it because I didn't have the knowledge to know how to balance it. And eventually the body started breaking down one after the other. And I was in the lowest part of my life, not that where I stood as a cricketer and the backing. I don't want to go there. I felt very let down on all quarters. So I went back, I started studying about it. Because every trainer has a different method, which is when I went back to my original trainer, Rajamani, and I started training again. I started doing everything old school, started, adopting techniques where I matched what I learned over the last decade as an athlete in the gym. And it started giving me rewards again. Of course, I had to patch up all the injured blocks in my body, which was even more harder because of this absolute... Look, I had a mind of a champion, but I don't think I had a body of one. So I had to really do the extra thinking.
What about the batting? 6 test hundreds, 2 at Chepauk, and often difficult runs. Not coming in at 400 for 5, sometimes 160 for 5 or whatever. How proud are you of the batting side of your career?
Very proud of what I did as a batter, but I definitely think if I had more, if I wanted to focus more on my batting, I could have probably ended up with a steeper average. I think I really struggled as a batter between 2017 to 20, whereas my injury coincided with my downside of the batting. But it picked it up once the COVID bubble had finished. But I think if I had focused more on my batting, I might have let go of what I did achieve as a bowler. The amount of time you need to spend on bowling is far more rigorous and far more unforgiving on your body that you can't afford the same time for your batting. But I made efforts. I travel every year. I've been traveling to the States over the last 4 or 5 years to work on my power hitting, which has kind of revived my batting in the shorter format, which I think also was responsible for me to make a comeback in the T20 side. So everything that I did had method, had flair, and also had a lot of foresight. We very often discuss about the successes because that's what meets your eye. But I failed a lot behind doors to be able to achieve that success.
Sorry, you're talking about all your shots. Can I just ask you about one non-shot, which I still to this day find remarkable? That the Melbourne last delivery against Pakistan. If there's 2 to win for me against Pakistan with Virat Kohli at the other end, I am swinging like a rusty gate. But you calmly stand there and watch that ball go down the leg side. How are you so calm and able to do that?
Nas, you know what I said? That's a good question, but I just want to put it between quotes. That there has always been my problem, and that's the fight between me and the rest of the cricketing world that I've had all these years. It's like a sparring game that the cricketing world doesn't seem to accept, that there is this gully cricketer who's come and he's rubbed shoulders with us and remained organically a gully cricketer all through his life. It is quite a hard bit to accept and swallow because I don't think gully cricket is so much of a thing in the Western world, let's say England, Australia, New Zealand. I don't think it's a big deal. But for me, it's a huge part of my life. Very late, probably mid into my career, I was still playing gully cricket with my friends. And it brought about a happiness that I don't think I've encountered anywhere else in the world. And leaving a ball on the leg side is a crucial factor for us to get a free hit because all our games, they're offside runs, right? So it is perennially about bowling underarm into your legs so that you can't score runs. So the moment you bowled a ball, it's very natural for me to just flick open my hips and leave that ball. And I didn't think about it. Most people, like they would say, I spent midnight oil on that to be able to leave that ball, which is not the case. I hadn't realized what I had done. I came back into the dressing room and I haven't seen Rahul Dravid exult like that. I mean, the second time I saw him exult was after the World Cup we won recently. And until then, I hadn't seen him exult. And he came to me and said, "That's why we had you in the squad. That's the way you deal with pressure." I'm like, okay, I didn't quite realize the magnitude of what it meant to people. But honestly, that moment, I just saw the ball, just let it go, and then it hit Rizwan and came back. And I think Virat was almost celebrating, and he just used his hand to say, "Who the hell leaves a ball like that?" I'm like, yeah, it just happened.
Could I ask about pitches, which is one of those topics that sends supporters, various countries into unbelievable ructions. But it seemed to me down the years that the pitches in India have become more spin friendly, I would say, over the couple of decades that I've watched. But I wanted to know, as a young spinner, because in England, if a county like Somerset prepare spinning pitches, they're often very quickly docked point, whereas seaming pitches don't quite get that attention. For a young spinner, is it more important to learn your craft on spinning pitches, on how to bowl on spinning pitches, or on flatter pitches? Or do you just need to learn how to bowl on both? Simple as that.
I'll first address the first part of your question before I get into the second one. I think the pitches, in many ways, you do get pitches that are very difficult to play on occasions, but largely people play in memory. And like if there is a turner that you played on the first game of a test series, people end up playing that test pitch for the rest of the series. And I find that amazing how they end up doing that. And the second nature to that is the evolution of DRS. People get hit on the front foot and get given out, which has made things extremely complex for the batters because you're getting hit on the outside edge. If you don't have a good defense, it's carrying to slip. And now if you're searching for the ball, you're in trouble for the one that comes through straight. In many ways, I think I'm very lucky to have a partner like Jadeja. I was very lucky to have a partner like him. I can't say I am. I was. And he was very good at exploring the inside half of the bat so many times for right-handers, which gave me the incredible luxury to be able to explore the creative side of me from both sides of the wicket. But having said all that, I think I definitely do believe this because of footage watching, placing fielders in positions that fetch you a lot of runs with your release shots, more proactive captaincy and field settings, DRS, everything included, has in general made pitches look more difficult than they have in the past. That includes even seaming pitches, right? And to address the second part of your question, I'm watching a lot of first-class cricket in India now. There has been a huge shift in the kind of pitches that get seam movement in India because that's promoted fast bowling as well. Spinners develop with volume. And if you don't get volume, it's going to be incredibly hard. And if you are another spinner who doesn't get volume and cannot dissect batsmen and do not have the knack of getting wickets, it gets even more harder. Then you end up going on this whole time loop of bowling the ball perfectly and landing it on a spot rather than bowling to get a wicket. I don't know if I've elaborated this really well, but I think it's a combination of everything coming together. Thankfully, I applied my trade in Chennai where there is a lot of opportunity to build on volume.
Can I ask you about captaincy? You mentioned their captaincy of spin, and one captain in particular, MS Dhoni. I speak to various people, Duncan Fletcher, Dinesh Karthik, and I often ask them the question, what makes MS the captain that he is? And they have to think a little while. There's no straightaway answer. What makes MS Dhoni the leader and the captain that he is?
Nas, it's actually a very simple question to answer, Nas. In my head, I think he does most of the basic things right. And most of the other captains miss the very basic elementary things, and it makes the game look much more difficult for them. he would never, for example, if he gave the bowler the ball, the first thing that he would say is take your field and bowl to the field. Like, for example, he hated the fact that when a batsman came into bat first and you gave a loose delivery, he wouldn't take me off bowling if I gave 2-3 boundaries in an over, if they were all well earned. But if I gave a new batter a ball to cut or a ball to drive right up when he came into bat, he'll be livid. He'll make me feel my place and he will take me off from bowling. And that's a very basic essence of cricket. And over the years, what I've realized is people have forgotten the basics, which is why when I saw you talk about batsmen in England getting very weird with their stances and techniques a few years ago, I was like, yeah, I heard it. I heard you. I hear what you're saying. There are certain non-negotiables in the game of cricket, right? Like however long or however far you go in this game, how much ever the game takes you in terms of changes and evolution, there are certain basic facets of the game that don't change. And MS Dhoni keeps it really simple on those accounts. Like I gave an example in last year's IPL. He's got Tushar Deshpande and he got the best out of him and people spoke about it a lot. I know what exactly MS Dhoni would have told him. He would have told him, get hit on the longer side of the boundary, give me 2 runs lesser than what you gave in the last game. That does 2 things to the bowler. It relieves the pressure and it makes him think how better I can get at a very small set of goals. It's a very small set. If I come and tell you, bowl an outswinger, you try to jag the ball back into the right-hander, that's a large skill set. But if I tell you, bowl to one side of the pitch, give 2 runs lesser, I'm looking for options now. It's a quick fix. And that's what sets him apart. It's not so complex. He does basic things very, very, very well day in and day out compared to the others.
You've obviously got a great cricket brain yourself. Is that something you would have liked to have done more, captaincy, or is it just not for you? Too fiery?
It's interesting, Nas. It's interesting because people often confuse themselves about... Look, I think I'm smart enough to know what works for me and what doesn't for another person. Sometimes, all through my career, when I started my career, I got captaincy given in first-class cricket very early. I've won few tournaments for the team. I believed I had it in me, but I do not have any regrets that I didn't go on to lead for my country. Because these are not things that I can control. I've realized somebody needs to feel that I'm good enough to lead a side. And then I need to get another 15, 20 people to come along with me for me to be able to lead the team with a lot of grace, elan, and success. It wasn't meant to me in this particular chapter of my life. Don't think this particular corporate or the office felt I was good enough for leadership. And that doesn't mean I'm not good enough for leadership. And leadership is also not one that you consider as a captain. You don't need a title to do that. Because within me, I have been a great leader in that group to be able to contribute to other people's success. I looked out for zones of contribution and I did it to the best of my abilities. I do not have regrets, but I do think it would have been something that I would have enjoyed.
We've had you for nearly an hour now. It's been absolutely fascinating. Just a final question from me, really. As you take a moment to reflect back on 13 years as an international cricketer, all those great victories, moments of success, dramatic moments. If you could pick one to just kind of package away and carry around with you forevermore, which is there a standout moment there that you reflect back on, maybe a happiest time or a moment that you really thought, yeah, this is it?
Very hard to pick on one because it's not, I can't just say this is a moment I'd like to keep seeing again and again. I think I got past that a lot in my life, but the way I bowled in Australia in 2021 has to be one that I really enjoyed myself, because Australia as a country, whenever I came back from Australia, I felt like I came back as a better cricketer. I started looking forward to those tours. In 2011 and 12, just to take you through the journey, I'll just try and swift through that. In 2011-12, the only way I knew how to bowl spin was to spin the ball hard. And if I got clobbered, I'd spin it harder. I'd spin it harder if I got hit again. That's the only way I knew to bowl. When I came off the tour, I learned about how to get my line length and be extremely ruthless in my first couple of spells when I went to Australia. The next time I went there, I didn't play the first test where Nathan Lyon ended up with 12 wickets. I felt very disheartened, but I didn't go away from my game plan. I knew how to have a game plan and be ruthless at it. And the next time I went back in 2017-18, I went back as a much more rounded bowler who knew how to control flight, drift. I used to get the ball to drift in and out, and also had a lot of subtle variations with good game plans. When I went there in 2021-22 or 2020-21, I can't remember when it was, I knew how to bowl batsmen out irrespective of conditions. I actually played with every single batsman's technique, and my game plan was to the T. And as a bowler, if you have a game plan, you can get the batsman to dance to your tunes and also bowl the ball on the spot at will. I don't think you can ever ask for a better time in your life. I absolutely loved that tour as a bowler, and my batting also came through later on in that tour. So that is one tour that I will keep very dearly with me.
It sounds as though that tour, you felt you had pretty much mastery of your art in that.
It happens in your life. It happens in your life, and it's a very. I think it was a similar time. I had a really good purple patch from then on till whenever I hung my boots up. I felt like I had things under control. Could go back to several plans, and yeah, it's a dream time for a spinner. Being a spinner is a journey in itself, Athos. It's an unbelievably good journey. It's an artistic journey. It's like an intellectual journey.
Well, one final question from me. That journey you talk about has come to an end. Who are the people behind the scenes? Who are the people that are important to you that made that happen, that journey, that don't get mentioned?
I'd say my parents were a huge part of it. Even now, recently, I mentioned this to my dad. I said, if the first half of my career is dedicated to you, the next half is dedicated to my wife. And he got angry. He said, no, it's not allowed. No, it's not happening. But I can't. Because you know what? The first half is all about the effort that my dad put into it and the effort that I cooperated with him. We both worked in partnership for it. The rest of the career came with a lot of emotional baggage, ups and downs, and a lot of learnings, a lot of disappointments, and all of this had to be faced by her on tours with me. She traveled mostly with me. Even during the COVID bubbles, my children traveled. They were really young kids. They traveled with me. They saw the ups and downs, the emotional trauma that I used to go through on several occasions. I think she even put a post out after the. I didn't cry at all, but she put a post after the like a couple of days ago. When I read it, I could hear it in her voice, and it was very powerful. And she was right. My journey wasn't like anyone else's. Not to like elevate it or downgrade it, but everybody's journey is unique. A lot of people when they talk about Indian cricket, that's one thing that I want to change over the years. They talk about Virat Kohli. They've been talking about Rohit a lot over the years. When I grew up, I spoke a lot about Sachin. I spoke about a lot of other superstars, the celebrities. But one message I want to leave this podcast or to everybody, and I wanted to consistently change, is not the fact that these are not glorious cricketers, but people on the outside who believe that everyone plays a support cast are extremely wrong, because this is a sport and everybody's journey. Because an MVP in my life, for my dad or for my mom, I am the MVP, and it's not Rohit, Virat, or anyone else on the outside. Likewise, everybody's journey is unique, and they are the protagonist in their own journey. So it's very important to recognize that. And for me, I have always been my MVP, and that's why I never shuddered to give my thoughts away or speak about what I feel in my mind, because cricket is the most important thing, and I am the MVP of my cricket.
That is a perfect place to end, right on an hour of excellent chat. Absolutely fascinating. Thanks very much for coming on. It's been a wonderful international career, it goes without saying. Many congratulations. You're not done yet as a cricketer, we know, but in international terms, it's done. But we hope we'll see you around. I mean, India are coming to England this summer, so we sincerely hope you'll be there and we'll catch up. And yeah, absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Athos. Thank you, Anas. It's been wonderful to share the screen space with you. I've always admired what you brought to the game, and it's been wonderful. Thank you.